Hi, this is Arik,
And Aurelia,
and we're here to talk about life and interesting things.
or so we think, but in the end, you will be the judge of it.
Either way, what we have to talk about is Ageless!
Ageless!
So, my first question today, this is what what is denial?
Well, I think any dictionary would answer that question, no?
Well, have you ever encountered denial or people in denial and then how do you handle that? How do you deal with people who are in denial?
In denial about what? We're all in denial about something.
Okay, let's start there. How is that? What is that, like ignorance?
Yeah,
For me, denial is like you're actively doing something and like
that too.
because like you deny it. It's not that you're not aware of it. You just like you deny it. Like
Mm,
you reject it in a way.
mm.
Do you think denial and rejection? So you think they're different?
No.
So then ignorance is something you reject. It's like some information or wisdom that you reject.
Uh-huh.
Oh, so we're not so much victims of ignorance as our ego wants us to be. We elect to be ignorant.
Yes.
That's intense. Makes sense though, because I mean, like, if you think of Pluto, the planet Pluto, for example, who likes to destroy ignorance and stuff
Mm,
like that, like that makes sense.
mm.
This is like things that we reject, really, that we're ignorant of.
Yeah. And I have struggled with that for a very long time that I thought, how come, how can somebody get ignorant? Like if somebody, like the Buddhists say, like you can have a animal rebirth and like if you have been a human now, but then, if you're really ignorant and
Mm-hmm.
then you can have an animal rebirth. And that to me for the longest time was inconceivable until I had this experience once, like with a person that I knew very well,
Mm-hmm.
who, yes, chose to dull herself down. And this is like dulling oneself down. That means to go more and more and more asleep and thereby to reject more and more and more of information and wisdom that is available. And that, would be to me another word of denial.
That makes sense because if you aren't in denial, then you're bright.
Yes,
You're not dull.
exactly.
Because being dull is just like bland and not really honest and not your essential self, but
Mm-hmm.
like the gray body.
Yeah. And it's like nobody can know everything or anything. Not the Buddha himself could know
Right.
everything because life is ever evolving. So,
Right.
there is
But
this
that's not, yeah. Mm-hmm.
amount of ignorance that's just there. But that is not there because I dull myself down. This
Yeah.
is like from the crown vortex where there is a lot of natural curiosity to
Yeah, I
explore
think
and to
that's not
find
really
out. And
ignorance.
so this is not denial.
It's not ignorance either because you don't reject it.
Yeah,
It's the unknown.
yeah,
And that's not the same thing as ignorance.
yeah.
Because you have the curiosity and you're open to it and you explore it. Because otherwise, you say I resolve my ignorance by being a know-it-all.
That's funny.
I know this about that,
Mm-hmm.
and guess what? I read about it.
Yeah.
You know what? I heard about that.
Uh-huh.
I know it all.
That's,
Everything you tell me, I already know it.
that's funny.
There's no exploration in that
No.
because actually, when you know something, you reject something else.
That's right. And then you're like in denial about that.
And then you're in denial about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but people can go a whole lifetime being in denial about things, right?
And then some.
Oh, And then some.
Because
Yes,
uh,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
have you ever noticed like somebody who had a total mm, critical and cataclysmic change happening in their life?
Yeah.
And let's say somebody lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think like, wow, everything has been taken away from me, everything is gone. And you think like, wow, this person now could actually experience a moment of freedom. If it's a spiritual person,
Oh, that's
let's just say,
interesting.
right? Because everything's gone, like you have nothing else to
Can
lose.
you hold your train of thought while I make a... Okay, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
And so then you can be very excited about this, but
Mm-hmm.
then you realize that maybe a year or two later, you look at the person and it's exactly the same person than it was before.
Okay.
Because if we lose everything at once, if it's like this big, big thing that goes all at once, then the ego feels it has no choice than to rebuild from what it knows.
Wow. So it lost everything that didn't matter.
Also thinks it didn't matter,
No, but like in the truth, like, knowledge, like this know-it-all ego was what I'm like. It didn't lose its ego
no,
consciousness.
it
It
didn't.
lost all the
Yeah,
material. Like that's what you mean. Like
yeah,
it lost all the outer stuff. It didn't really lose that consciousness of attachment and ego and rejection, because
yes, exactly.
really the know-it-all can only know by rejecting.
Yes,
And then it settles for something, and
yes,
then maybe it's the consensus or the popular information or what's written in the press. I mean, we've been hearing
yes.
it since the 90s. I don't read what I don't believe
Mm-hmm.
everything I read in the
Yeah.
papers, this and that, but not really losing that attachment consciousness to
Exactly.
rejection.
Yes, that's exactly
And it's
right.
basically self-rejection at the core, I would think. Like, because I think one of the one of the wisdoms from the tarot is like to know thyself,
Mm-hmm.
but that means to embrace thyself, not to reject thyself. And when
Mm-hmm.
you reject yourself, then you have to supplement it with knowing stuff,
Yeah, and then you're in denial about
and
something.
then you're in denial about something. That's really intense. So then what you're saying is that then you rebuild from that fragmented consciousness
Yes.
that it knows the same. It basically says, okay, my tower has crumbled, like in the tower from the
Mm-hmm.
tarot, the planet Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has crumbled. Now I have to rebuild, but rather purify that know-it-all in the star. In
Mm-hmm.
Aquarius, they say, no, I'm going to rebuild from what I know,
Yeah. And so,
from the rubble.
yes. And so that leads us back to, can people live like that all their life? And I said yes, and then some,
Makes
because
sense.
you can actually not lose more than your life,
Right.
But
Nice.
your life is gone as you know it, but your consciousness is still there. And this is how, so very often, our lives over the eons have just become copies and pastes.
And hence the denial.
Yeah.
Because if someone knew that they were rebuilding the same thing, they probably wouldn't do it, but the denial mechanism kicks in to show, no, this is like, this is new, but it's
Hmm.
really not.
Hmm.
Intense.
I think so.
It's really intense. So what's a good way to get out of denial? I mean, if losing everything's not doing it, then I guess like there's just no way other than
Baby
being
steps.
honest.
Baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
One little step at a time. And this is like how I call it, is like you have to fool the ego.
Mm-hmm.
Like you make changes so small that the ego just, doesn't care about it because, this one little thing, whatever.
So making small changes is more effective than.
Yeah, like,
But then why does then losing everything all at once? But then my question immediately is, then why then do people lose everything all at once? Because there must be some benefit to it. I mean, you can work it, right? No, or
I mean, it's case by case,
yeah, yeah,
obviously.
yeah, yeah. But it would be theoretically possible for someone to they lose everything and then they don't rebuild. Like then it's like a much quicker, faster.
Yeah, like I said, like, because then you are experiencing a moment of freedom. I mean,
Yeah.
and you even see that, like, in interviews, let's say there's a California wildfire and you lose your home, or a flood and your home has been washed away, and then there are people who take this in stride and are
Yeah.
like, yeah, wow, now I don't have to pay the mortgage anymore. I don't know,
I
but it
suppose
just
though you wouldn't know because if you're in denial, then you really have no idea.
mm,
But yes, yes, that makes
mm-hmm,
sense. So it's really then to recap, like ignorance is rejection, and that's dulling you down.
mm-hmm,
And then if you're dull, it's very difficult to even get a sense of what's what.
mm-hmm.
And we electively dull ourselves down every time we are basically lazy with our thought processes
Yeah, or if we have
or
ideas
outsource it.
about ourselves that are just simply not true, and then we have to put what it's called a square into a round peg or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What it is called. So, I have known many people who have this high opinion of themselves, that they're like so advanced and that they don't judge and that they're just like, right there. But then if something happens that doesn't fit their agenda, then they go straight up into denial.
Well, yeah, oh,
Like, I mean, have you
whoa.
not
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
noticed?
yeah,
Like, there are
yeah.
people now, we are married for so many years and we're together even longer.
Mm-hmm.
And there are still people who are in denial about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't fit their idea.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. I've always wondered about that. How denial is a go-to reaction.
Mm-hmm. That's how that is.
That's rejection in action.
Yeah, that's rejection in action, and that's that part of rejection that you mentioned where you reject yourself.
It's internalized.
Yeah.
Because denial isn't like, it's not like attacking, projecting, but it's like this rejecting, but like, you know how like rage is internalized anger?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like denial is this internalized rejection. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
it just, it feels
Yeah,
like
I can
that
see that.
because it's like, I deny it, and it's not even like where you like it's funny I want to say like ignore like in terms of
Mm-hmm.
ignorance,
Yeah.
like it's not that you don't acknowledge it, it's like you do acknowledge it but you deny it.
That's right.
You know, it's really intense
It's like a
because
child standing in the room and putting their hands over their eyes and says, I'm gone.
yeah, wow, okay, 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 uh-huh,
That would be my image for denial.
mm-hmm, like it's not there, like
Yeah,
not
it's just
like
like you can't see me anymore,
mm-hmm,
I just
mm-hmm.
disappeared.
Yeah, because with denial you're aware of it,
Yeah.
but you put your hands over your eyes
Yeah.
to deny it.
Yeah, and then you do that so long until you really believe it.
Yeah,
And then it became
you
ignorant.
confuse yourself.
Yeah.
You dull yourself into
Yes.
confusion,
Uh-huh.
and then you're ignorant to reality and truth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess the consequence is you can't really step into your power
No.
because you it's impossible to be present and in denial.
That's
Because
right.
because in presence
Everything's clear.
everything is clear and in denial everything is
Dull.
dull,
Mm-hmm.
intense.
Mm-hmm. And then the vibration is low, and then
Mm-hmm.
people get tired all the time, and you have no idea how much strength and energy it takes to be in denial
No.
24/7.
That's
And
true
then they
actually.
need coffee, and then they need whatever other uppers, and
Mm-hmm.
and they're still tired. They still don't have
Like
energy.
stimulants and stuff.
Yeah.
So, if you had like a traumatic experience and you don't want to look at it, that might not be denial, I feel like.
That might be self-preservation.
Yeah.
This depends
I
on.
feel like that's not denial. I feel like denial is more like this selfish ego defense mechanism that says, nah, like we would be ready to look at it, but we're not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Because it doesn't fit the self-image.
it doesn't. What is that?
That's what it
Talk
is.
about
It has,
that. I like what you said about that. Like, like I'm holy and I don't judge, but then if something happens, then like it doesn't fit into my self-image. So then what am I doing with it? Like
I deny it. I deny that this is either happening or.
yeah. Talk about these self-images. Like, so what's that? Like, what these self-images, like what are like our little, like what you call like these puzzle pieces, and then if like the circle comes but I only have square spaces available, then it's like, or so I think, that doesn't fit here, like, that's that's intense, right? Or how would you describe that?
Like a self-image.
So a self-image though can also be like something like in your reality, like maybe it doesn't pertain to like my image, but also the image that I have of my reality.
Yeah.
Like holograms.
Yeah.
We're talking holograms.
Yeah.
My self holograms.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna use some of that in my research and healing work, because that's really cool with the holograms. Because I do a lot of hologram work, but this is really interesting with these self holograms.
Yeah.
And that's why then, like, if you say something that's of value but my ego doesn't like it, then it's not fitting into my self images, and then I deny it.
Like, I mean, one example that I'm sure you have known people like that. I've, in my part, have known people like that, male and female. Like, this is not connected to a particular gender at all. But, when they think they're like God's gift to man or womankind, and they think that everybody is just into them.
Okay. Yeah.
And I mean, I have often had to bite my cheek to not laugh out loud when I observe these kinds of situations. And let's say there is, like you're out with somebody, like you're in a restaurant when that was still a possibility. And then let's say there's the waitress or the waiter, and they serve you, and they're professionally friendly.
Right.
And then you start to see, how the guy is like starting to flirt with the waitress, and you're going, nah, yeah, whatever. And the waitress stays professionally friendly, and is not really responding, but is also there. I mean, it's her table; she has to take care of it. And then as soon as she's gone, like the guy, I mean, not your guy, obviously, but somebody you're there, like friends or whatever, says, "Oh, do you see it? She's so into me, like how she looked at me," and I was like, and you're like, "Oh my God, what do you see?" And that's denial. So, and this usually, if you look at it, man or woman alike, these are either women or men who have been very rejected.
Okay.
Who do not feel attractive, who do not feel loved, have jealousy problems, feel generally lesser than. And they are in denial about that, and they create this hologram around them that everybody is into them.
This is the same programs that cannot see our love.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and this sounds like also like a projectile of this internalization of denial, like where I said denial seems to be like an internalized process,
Mm-hmm.
but this then seems like the acting out of it.
Yes.
Like, because rage can go a long time without acting out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this seems like this is the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And so here we have a self-image that we've imposed on ourselves. Like, we are so attractive
Mm-hmm.
and we're just it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a self-image. I see myself that way, and I am in denial about the fact that I really feel so unloved, so that I have to prove it with every person I meet that I'm so desirable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that seems like that's not even narcissism. Like that's
No.
just like insecurity
Yeah.
and projected patheticness
Yeah,
in a way.
sadly. Yeah.
I mean, really, I mean it in the truest
Yeah,
sense of the
no.
word.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean it as derogatory. I mean it as
Yeah.
like medically pathetic.
Yeah. It is.
Or
Yeah.
cosmically pathetic,
Mm-hmm.
holistically pathetic, naturopathically pathetic. Yeah, yeah. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, I've definitely have.
I've seen people like that.
Well, I was raised in an environment like that, so
Yeah, well.
let's not forget. I've come from LA, so
Yeah, that of course is true.
that's
There's
like
a lot of that going around there.
yeah. I love Los Angeles and
Mm-hmm.
California is so beautiful, but this is like a whole nother
Yeah, I mean, of course, if
realm.
you continuously have to be in competition with Hollywood and everything that's going
Mm-hmm.
on, I'm sure it's just tough to grow up there.
So I think then I said something that I think is really interesting like earlier in the podcast, but it's like just kind of changing lanes a little bit, but I'm sure it's like, pretty much in the same direction where we're going. But do you think that we are outsourcing our thinking?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, nobody's thinking for themselves anymore.
That would be part of denial, I guess,
Yeah,
right?
like
Because I feel
working up a mental sweat.
yeah, from dodgeball. I feel like if you are not in denial and then thereby not dull, you can think for yourself.
Uh-huh.
But if you're just what I notice is that like what the ego tends to do is it shuffles information around and then it calls it thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nicely put.
Yeah, it's just like, well, I'll just take it from here and I'll put it there and I've processed the information and maybe I held the box but I didn't really open it and read the contents, but I held it and I moved it from one shelf to the other, so I know everything about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have the bigger picture.
Mm.
Because I what I have is what I call the millennial scan, where
Yes.
you just read the headline and you know the whole thing,
Uh-huh.
or the boomer editing, where they read the whole thing and they don't even know what they're reading because they're too busy getting caught up on the little edits, the mistakes and the details.
Uh-huh.
And so this is like I feel like we're outsourcing the thinking as well by not when we are in denial, because I guess what the truth is too difficult to confront, or what I guess that's what denial is about, really, like just not facing the light of the truth.
Yeah, 100%. And like we said, I mean, thinking, it's a joke. Like, I love to break a mental sweat,
Yeah.
But it also is true. I mean, true thinking in the sense of contemplating something
Okay.
can use up a lot of energy. And you have to really open yourself. But if you're in denial, then that's a risk you're not going to take. So you have to...
Because like you said, it needs a lot of energy.
Yeah, and you have to have somebody else do the thinking for you.
Whoa. I often talk about how we are in the age of Aquarius, and this is about knowledge, But I feel like if you just grab onto knowledge that's there, then you're already that's being fed to you, then you're already outsourcing your thinking.
Mm. I mean, in all honesty, it's really, really difficult to do your own good research these days. I
No,
mean,
I have Google.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't know if you remember that, but I used to always start looking at Google like at page 400 or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything else I would totally ignore, and then it would be really interesting what I find there.
Mm-hmm.
But these days are over.
Yeah, they're
There is
over.
no Google 400 anymore.
No, and you still have to
Because
try
it's
to do your own
just
thinking.
repeating itself endlessly, and there is no new information that's being divulged, because the bots will only always come back to what they already know.
Mm-hmm.
And so it becomes very, very difficult to find good sources. And like one of the sources that I use if I have to do research about something is like from universities,
Mm-hmm.
like where you have to bite the apple and you have to fight your way through these horrible 1.0 PDF files.
Yeah.
But this is then really where you find good information,
Yeah, of
and where
course.
it's sourced well, and it tells you where it's coming from, and
Mm-hmm.
you have like a bigger picture than just a millennial like
Headline
headline grab. Exactly.
clickbait.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I kind of understand that most people are not willing to do that, nor maybe the next generation who doesn't even know that that exists.
Right. And we have, as humans across all generations, I think, maybe not, I don't know, but at least some of the generations I know, is this need to know.
Yeah.
This need to know. And I feel like it can be something that's very violent. This need to know.
Yeah, if you're interrogating somebody.
If you're interrogating.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also doesn't really matter about the quality of knowledge.
No.
It's like, I just need to know. Like, okay, like, I habitually need to know the weather, and then I'm told what the weather is, and then I'm done. Check. But still, that need to know that hunger has been fed.
Yes. Yeah.
And we constantly have the need to know, and we cannot really allow things to be outside of our denial, our self-images.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Or if something comes that's outside of our images, then we deny it, or we fact check it.
Yeah.
That's not fitting into my self-images, like my self-image list of facts.
Yeah. And we will find whatever we need to find to confirm whatever it is we believe.
Google has a fact check section now.
Wow. It's really, really scary for the next generation. That's how I feel.
Scary for this generation.
Yeah, but this generation at least knows that there is something different.
Oh, I see. Uh-huh.
But the next generation will not even know. And if I...
And those who are about to reincarnate too.
Yeah, and if I'm just thinking about it, because I don't know if you know that, but we've mentioned that Arik has been badly censored, and so Twitter also took away thousands of his followers.
Mm-hmm.
And these were not bots, these were really organically grown followers. And that's really intense, because all these people now, they are like second class people, that are not deemed good enough for a certain kind of information. And once this goes on,
like a caste system for information, or
yes.
what?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Need to know in another way.
Yeah.
That's a need to know
basis, on a need
basis.
to know
That's on
basis.
a need to know basis.
Yes. Wow, but
10-4
I
clear.
love
A
that. Like a
caste system
caste
for
system for
information. I
information.
just titled this podcast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's intense.
Mm-hmm.
And this is then taking the denial to the next level.
Wieso?
Because then, like the different costs of denial would then be the different waves of information that are being fed.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Well, we see that already, like how Google search will the parameters are based off your search history.
Yeah, like you
And
find
your
totally
location.
different things than I do.
That's why I'm really proud, and I'm really like, that Tim Cook, made that statement about like how users on the internet should not be tracked from one thing to another.
Yes.
For marketing purposes. Yeah. Like, like how I said, for decades we've been doing marketing without that. Mm-hmm. And this, is calling for a reform. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Because these search parameters and this creating this caste system of information is really quite extreme. You can control the commerce sites. You can control the information, the education, all of that. Like, really, in a way, how it used to be.
Yeah.
I mean, read my mainstream media meltdown article. Mm-hmm. Like, how news came to be.
Yeah, 100%.
So, I mean, if you can find it.
And nothing... yeah, it's not even funny. Mm-hmm. But yes, try to find it. But nothing has changed. It's only our self-image about it and our holographic perspective about it has changed. Because the king, whoever the king of the moment is still the only one who has the true information. And you think he will part with it and give it to you? No, not even WikiLeaks is gonna get it.
Yeah, but what's really powerful about that is that maybe the king has the information, but we all have the truth within us.
Yes.
And there we have our own mainstream to like,
yes.
The truth, the divine, and that's the most powerful thing. But this is a weak connection, that we have to all strengthen, with meditation and good lifestyle and not outsourcing our thinking.
Yeah, like how it said, a true sage, like with the cosmic pixels, for example, like with the tarot, it says, I could live in a prison cell all my life. All I need would be a tarot deck, and I could tell you exactly what's going on in the world.
Yeah, beautiful.
And that's how it is, because,
that.
through the archetypes, like, you look and you see.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, who's got the time?
Well, in lockdown, I have my tarot deck, and I see what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah!
Wouldn't that be nice?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but it's not. We're wasting, like, so much time and so much energy with, like, these inconsequential things.
Yeah, very inconsequential. Well, I think it's important to stop outsourcing our thinking and, to just become aware of this caste system of information and just know that it's going on and to not contribute to it either. And how do you do that? Well, by addressing your denial. And I think it starts within, like, the simple things that you're in denial about, not even about, the pandemic and stuff, but just your own life.
Exactly. Like, why would I need a so-called influencer on Instagram tell me what to eat, drink, wear, or think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or a report in, like, some, magazine or some newspaper or some review or whatever.
Yeah. I should really just be looking into myself and saying, okay, this is what I want to eat. This is what I want to drink.
It's really interesting because Aquarius, like, which we're going through right now, the age of Aquarius and also Aquarius season, is the masses, but it's also like this individuality. And we can only be like a mass collective when we are individuals.
Yes. beautiful.
And I think that's like, we're just like trying to jump right into socialism or right into masses, and that's not good. Like, we all have to be individuals and we all have to be responsible for ourselves, and then that is like implicit that we care and are responsible for others, but only by being true to ourselves and original.
Yeah, because then we can contribute.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're not contributing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it becomes a gray mass.
Back to the gray bodies.
Yeah.
We're dull. We're
You
not
have
we're
it.
not the bright starlight of Aquarius, but the dull, murky waters of the pond.
No, yes,
You know?
it's true.
So
It's
yeah,
true.
so yeah, and then we need denial because it doesn't look so good, rather than to increase our vibration,
Exactly.
and then to read the tarot.
Yeah.
So
And then I want to be rainbow bright, and I'm gonna fight murky dismal.
and with that said, that's a beautiful image to leave on. And that was an amazing podcast. Thank you very much for the
Thank
honor of
you.
your beautiful speech. And this has been Arik.
And Aurelia.
And you've just listened to an episode of
Ageless.
Ageless. Please subscribe and forward to anyone in your world who needs to hear this. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye.